Hi, my name's Trina Nicole. I'm the founder of the Curve Catwalk.
My name is Akeem, Bundu-Kamara, and I am the founder of Locker Space. For me, I think that building a personal brand has been absolutely critical in terms of essentially telling my own story. I think especially from a business point of view, if you tell your own story, people buy into you. And I know for a lot of the brands that I like, that I buy into the leaders and the people who are represented. Like, I kind of see them as like a role models. So I feel like building my personal brand has been just super important and critical, making sure that I'm connecting with people too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think how I like to think about it is building a personal brand for me is what do people say about me when I'm not in the room? I think that's really important because then that kind of frames things a lot for me in terms of like perception and, like what are the key words that sort of come up and am I actually like living that? Is that actually truthful? And how I go about that is actually thinking about how I want to be perceived. Like, what do I want people to think about me when it comes to my personal brand? Because I think sometimes people think personal brands are just something that just happens to you. It's like you have control of that. So, how do I see myself and how do I want other people to see me? And then when I kind of establish that, then it's like, so what's the experience that I'm bringing? Like, what's the evidence behind that? Which I think is really key. And like, what am I doing to live the truth of that? I think those are like key things that I like to think about as well when it comes to personal brand.
I think just to touch upon something that you said around the control element, I think it's just so correct because you do have an ability, there are some actions that you can take and, your own words and your actions are within your control. What else everyone else does is something that you can't do. But I think to build your own personal brand is being conscious about what you can do and what you can't do. And then what you can do is really playing that out and really understanding who you want to be to some level.
Exactly. And also speaking up and using your voice. I feel like I've had to learn that a lot over the past few years, especially. So if I just use an example, people would sort of refer to me as like a body positivity influencer or body positivity activist. And for one, like I don't call myself an activist. I don't really like live up to that name. And I don't also subscribe to body positivity either. So I really had to be in control of changing that narrative. And, because people, I feel like if you don't, people will put labels on you. Like you're saying, you can't control what other people do. So I had to be really vocal and speak up in terms of like, that's not how I refer to myself. I'm not an activist. I think it's also being wary of like the labels that are being put on you. So speaking up and using your voice is definitely a lesson I've had to learn over the past few years.
Absolutely, and I can completely understand exactly what you've said in terms of creating that narrative. Ever since I've been on The Apprentice, I've had a lot of unsolicited advice.
Exactly.
I've had a lot of opinions about who I am, about my personality.
Yeah.
But I know for sure that through my own social channels that I'm able to tell my own story about my business, about like a locker space.
Exactly.
Like what we're able to do. So.
And you can carve that out. Like you don't want to just be known as the person that was on The Apprentice. You're so much more than that. You have so much more to offer and deliver. And it really is for you to take that control and bring that to the forefront.
Yeah. And I feel like every time I do something on my socials or I have a conversation, that's my own press release.
Exactly.
And I have the opportunity to control what I say and
I
what I do.
I love that. And that's also the power of social media. Like I know there's negative sides of social media, but also the positive side now in 2022, like we can be in control of that, like our own narratives, what we're putting out there, what we want people to see. So yeah, good advice. How I go about discovering my niche and how I would go about being my authentic self is to really just think about my story. I think I like to lead with my story, like who I am, why am I the way I am, and what have my experience taught me today and to my present life. For me, I think I didn't realize how much power there is in my own story. You know, I think when my mentors were first asking me about my story and tell me a bit about you, you know, you're just like, oh, what do I even say? There's not much to say. When really there's so much, like, even within the field and the industry that I'm in, when it comes to, you know, body confidence and being plus size, like, it's not the fact that, oh, I'm just a plus size person. Like, the fact that I'm black makes a difference. Like, it means something. The fact that I was raised in like a Caribbean household, my heritage is Caribbean, that adds to my story. So like there's all these little things that you might think, oh, that doesn't matter, but it does matter. So I think it's honoring all the parts of you. I think that's something that, again, I've learned a lot, and I realize how powerful it is, and that's what sort of makes you stand out, you know. So even within the, I guess, the plus size space, it's not just, oh, Trina's just like another plus size girl. It's like in my dance classes, I bring a lot of like Caribbean music to my dance classes because that's a bit of me. That's how I am, you know. I talk a lot about being a black woman and the black experience within living in a larger body, and how a lot of black women are hypersexualized and how we've actually been ostracized from the body positivity space. That is my experience. That's my lived experience. So bringing that to the forefront actually means that I have more to say. I have more to offer. And that's why I think it's really important.
And I think it's so critical that you tell your own story, because no one has the same story. And however, I feel that there's still a growing pressure on a lot of people to having to fit in. Yeah. And when you do fit in, you remove a part of your essential story. And I feel the less we try to conform to just like social standards about who we are and what we do. I remember when I was in school and I was hesitant about bringing some food in from school, from home into school, because I wanted to fit in. Yeah. And now I'm seeing a lot more, because of people like yourself, you're opening up and you're letting others know it's okay to have this story. It's okay to be your authentic self. Yeah. And I also feel just through a lot of my entrepreneurial adventures, my own personal life, going through ups and downs and having those experiences, that it has become a lot more comfortable to take those risks and to feel I can do this and I can just tell my own story. Because when I used to tell my story, there were things that I would remove because I didn't think they were important. And now I'm realizing how all of these small components make up every single part of who I am.
Yeah, it matters, doesn't it? Like, I can totally relate. I would always shrink myself because I would be embarrassed or be ashamed of certain parts of me, whereas now I realize that those parts of me that I would shrink and I would hide are actually like the most powerful, because by sharing my story, I realize there's so many people who go through the same things or have experienced the same things. And actually now that I speak about it more and I'm a bit more open and able to be a bit more vulnerable, they can relate to me a bit more. So now I really make a point of taking up space and being unapologetic about it. Like, I know that's sort of thrown out quite a lot about being unapologetic, but really I say that my superpower is my authenticity. That really is, because like you said, no one is me. So the more I am actually able to own it and to stand in my truth, the more I've realized that my personal brand has got stronger, and I've actually been able to build a community of people who not only trust me, but can relate to me. And I think that relatability is really important, because when you sort of move the brand to the side, so to speak, it's really a human connection. It's people connect with people, right? So they have to see that human side of you, which I think is really powerful.
And I think that human side can only come because of the vulnerability. And I think that's the thing that unfortunately people are still, I feel hard. Like
let's keep it real.
It is very hard, but I feel when you do expose that, I think it shows strength. Yes. I think strength is really shown by people who are willing to put themselves out there and be, you know, in the spotlight. And I feel that if you can build that strength, you build the relatability, and people can really understand that, you know, that we're not superheroes, but they may see us as superheroes. I feel that I managed to get people to buy into me from a positive point of view by making them feel good. I feel like one of the things I really try my hardest to do is make people feel comfortable, whether that's an intern that works at Locker Space, whether that is friends or family, or whether it's just a random person on the internet. If they connect with me, I try to make sure that those interactions are positive and make it feel like I'm just a mate. And don't get me wrong, like there's all these different circumstances, right? But I feel the more comfortable that you can make someone to feel like themselves and feel like they can be honest, I feel like you'll get some good feedback from that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even with my business in the Curve Catwalk, I've specifically created a safe space, and not just to make it sound fancy, you know, like a non-judgmental space, because I feel like that's what I wanted and that's what I needed. So again, it goes back to that authenticity and your story. Like, I've created this space because of me, so now I know what to do to make it different and what to do to make it a pleasurable experience for other people to find joy and to be comfortable, because I think that's really important. I would also just go back to the storytelling, like, you know, just sharing parts of you, being able to be vulnerable, so that there is that sort of connection. But also, I think community, I would say, like, I think the community element of my business has really had that positive influence, I would say, because sometimes I feel like it almost like grows bigger than you know, like it starts off that way, but it gets bigger. So how do you actually maintain that positive influence? And I think that is by fostering a safe community, in my opinion and in my experience as well.
My best piece of advice for someone who's trying to build their personal brand would be create content and scream from the rooftops about yourself. Because if you don't believe yourself and you're not shouting, unfortunately, nobody's going to do it for you. And building my personal brand has been so helpful through all of the channels that I've had. And yeah, it's really, really helped.
I love that. I think my piece of advice would be just to, I think having a niche helps. So like knowing what it is people are coming to you for, identifying my niche has really, really helped me. So that would be my piece of advice. And also noting that it's not that having a niche means that you can only talk about that one thing, but I think having that relatability and just, having that brand identity can really help via having a niche. So yeah.